No mai haere mai. It's the Huddy Hui. Find Huddy Sports on Instagram and Facebook. huddysports.co.nz. Now let's kōrero.
Kia ora, good evening and welcome to the Huddy Hui. Two Huddy Huis this week. This is episode 146 and then tomorrow night we've got 147. A jam-packed week of rugby and other sports here on Huddy Sports. There's a few live streams we'll talk to you about later in the broadcast. But tonight we catch up with one of Wellington's premier referees who achieved a significant milestone in the weekend, bringing up his 50th Blazer game. Matt Thomas is our guest on the Huddy Hui tonight. Matt, many thanks for coming on the Hui. Well done on your 50th game. The game was an absolute thriller with Pōneke holding on against Petone. Were you shattered after the game?
Good, Brett. Thanks for having me. I think one of the things I've changed this year with my refereeing is really putting a focus back on it and enjoying being out there. And I think that means that when I get to the end of the games, I'm not as shattered as probably would be if I was being a bit more probably somewhat serious about it. So, no, I think it was a great contest. It said it could have gone either way, and yeah, I was really happy to get that as my 50th fixture.
And your thoughts on your overall performance? What feedback did you get post game?
I think there was a few sort of sternum high tackles, more than what I was used to. So that had a look a bit of, if there's anything else I could have done differently there. My general sort of thoughts were that, most of it was pretty low on the dangerous side of things. So just sort of penalising it, but letting the boys just get on and play. But overall, I was pretty happy with how things went. There were one or two decisions, as there always is, that probably were wrong. But one or two decisions is pretty good in the scheme of things.
Every rugby referee has a pre-game preparation. Did you change anything in your pre-game preparation before the significant game, knowing that it was going to be your Blazer game?
No, I should try to. Well, first of all, my parents had come down for the weekend from Gisborne, so there was a slight deviation from the normal prep. But no, I still my prep this season has actually been to get out and do a 5K park run on Saturday morning with my daughter. So I still got out there with her, did that, went home, played some PlayStation for a bit, then got my stuff ready, showered, and had the same lunch I have. The only slight deviation I made was I made a few notes on my phone to thank people at my Blazer presentation, just to make sure I don't forget anyone significant.
That'd be a good idea to remember not to forget anyone. So you received your Blazer after the game. Where were those celebrations held, and what did the Wellington rugby referees do to recognise your achievement besides the Blazer?
So we went back to Joe's Garage, which is owned by Zahn and Luke, a couple of other referees in our association. So it's great to be able to go back there and give some back to over the bar to them, but also Zahn does a great job at hosting everyone and makes a really good night. So yeah, we went back there. As people may be aware, that it took a bit longer to get into the city on Saturday with the accident. So we made the decision to shoot up to the Haywoods from Petone and go around, and it was probably much of a muchness in the end, but we just sort of thought that's the safer route to go. So we went in. So we got there, and then by that point, I think the Hurricanes were just kicking off when we walked in. So it was a good opportunity for everyone to sort of come in and catch up while the first half was played. And then at halftime, we went on to the Blazer presentation, and there are a few people that sort of said some speeches there and did the presentation. Then the drinks kept going for a few hours after that.
Of course, how important was it to have the family down, and particularly your parents coming down from Gisborne for the occasion?
Oh yeah, it was massive. Obviously, with them living up in Gisborne, they haven't really seen me referee a lot. So to have them here, I was quite. One thing I said for the event is to Ben Van Berkel, who organised a lot of it, is that I just didn't want to have anything to do with organising it. I usually have a lot to do with organising everyone else's presentation. For this one, I thought, I just want to step back. So I was quietly hoping that Mum and Dad were going to be coming down, and then sort of over the course of last week, I started to figure out, sort of put two and two together, that someone was coming, and then I got asked to pick them up from the airport on Friday morning. So I was really happy to have them here, and yeah, it was a great experience.
Last year, the association changed the ruling for the Blazer presentation. It used to be 100 games, now down to 50. It was a long time coming, that decision, but do you feel it was the best decision in the end?
Oh, absolutely. For me, I'm a big team person. I've even coming from an individual sport into an individual another sport. I'm a big team person, I think. And it's obviously the guys who got the Blazer for making 100. It certainly doesn't demean that at all. But for me, it's we should want a group of guys or girls wearing these Blazers at after matches and around, and it's about building that camaraderie. And 10 for us. I spoke to a couple of the guys at Petone, and they sort of said, 50, and said, how long is that taken? So I said 3 years, and as I say, no, it's six. This is halfway through my sixth Premier season, because we don't ref every week, Premier Rugby, so it usually takes probably twice as long as what it would a player to get the same amount of caps.
How is the association looking this season in the year 2025? There's been a lot of changes, particularly at the Premier ranks since last year. There's some changes and new opportunities for the Premier squad this year.
Yeah, a lot of changes at the Premier level. So obviously last year as well, they brought in the zone squads, which have put a bit of a difference in a sort of a pathway, and then more this year they've tried to build a frame. New Zealand Rugby have tried to build a framework around how refereeing will work in terms of grading and things across all of New Zealand. So I think that just gives a bit more clarity and transparency around how these things are done, and it just gives pathways for people to go through. And so like the last couple of years, at least one of the top three referees from the previous season has left to go elsewhere all around the world. So it's been interesting, but it's a good opportunity for some of the young guys to get in there, and a good opportunity to who knows what's going to happen at the end of the season.
Who are some of the new faces in the Premier group, and including some of the up and coming referees?
So we've got Nathan that's come down from Auckland this year, and he's doing well. And there's some good write-ups on him a couple of weeks ago about how he's balancing law and rugby, and he's looking pretty good. You got Ethan Jefferson that's come through the school sort of referee system, and he's in that sort of Hurricanes Youth Council. So he's now made his it's level 5, I suppose we're calling it now. So at the moment, so he's in level 5, and then got James Taylor's the other one that's come up this year from the lower ranks. So it's good to see a good group of guys. At the moment, it is all guys. Hopefully, we can get some girls coming up the ranks at some point. But it's a good group, and it's good to be a part of.
Referee numbers have been dropping for a few years now, not just in Wellington, but across the country as well. However, there has been games this year where some of the lower club and school games have had to go without a referee or not go ahead at all. What can be done to address the referee shortage, particularly in Wellington?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, Brad. As I say, it's happening all across the board. I've had a few conversations with people lately around. I find that if you go around the country, Wellington doesn't seem to be very good at bringing ex-players over into refereeing. A lot of the other provinces have ex-professional players or very players that have played a lot at a high level, but in Wellington we don't seem to be able to do that as much. And to be honest, I don't know the answer to that problem, but I do think that's certainly an avenue that we should be tapping more. I think there's an opportunity to get younger players having turns, when they have bye weeks and things, refereeing a game just to see what it's like, and just to get involved. And I think that's where we've got to be looking at, is how do we get players involved, because our current referee Premier squad is not made up of ex-players or high level players, and they bring a very different dynamic to the referee discussions when you have those sort of people. So that's where I'd say we should be looking.
Another factor that could be attributing to that is what's known as referee abuse. Last week, the Horowhenua Kapiti Rugby Football Union issued an ultimatum to the rugby community around referee abuse, saying if it continues, we're going to call off a weekend of rugby. What's it been like in Wellington this year, from your experience?
It's always a hard one, and this one just doesn't seem to go away. And like a lot of things, social media just makes sort of these things worse. We're lucky at Premier level as a referee, we don't really get too much of it. I think a lot of that's because by the time you get to Premier Rugby, generally people have a better understanding of the rules generally. So you're not getting as many controversial. There's still going to be controversial decisions, but not as many. But also, it's you get to that point, it sort of becomes a bit white noise. And there's always going to be we want enthusiastic fans, and we want them being passionate for their teams. But when people are crossing lines, which has clearly been happening up the coast, it just needs to be dealt with, because there's just no place for it there. Because when the numbers are weak, and a lot of the time it's actually the abuse is worse in the lower grades where the referees are younger. And I just think I've had to have words to people abusing teenage referees, and in what other world would you be able to abuse a teenager and just think you can walk away from it?
Exactly right. Now, let's go back to where it all started with you in rugby refereeing. What year did you start, and what was your first game of rugby you refereed?
Yeah, so I started in 2015, and there's a bit of debate, and I probably should have actually validated it before, but I know that my first game was at St Bernard's College. I know that was that. I thought the
my
opposition
first game was at St Bernard's as well. So.
Yeah, it's a trial by fire type environment. No, I thought the opposition was Hutt Valley High, but apparently on Saturday I was told the opposition was Hiratonga, and it would have been under 55s. So that was my first. I definitely remember being at St Bernard's College for my first game.
Why did you decide to take up the whistle?
Yeah, my motivations were quite simple, really. I'd coming from swimming, I'd sort of been my race weight was about 78 kgs, and then I'd stopped swimming and then not doing a lot with myself in terms of physical activity, and I'd getting a bit higher than what I want to be. So really, my main motivation was just to get off my butt and start losing some weight. That was really it to start with.
You hail from Gisborne, as we already talked about. Where did you go to school up there?
I went to Campion College up in Gisborne. So it's a small Catholic school.
Did you play rugby up there when you were young as well, back up there in Gisborne, in the Poverty Bay?
No. I didn't play rugby due to swimming. It was generally discouraged to do contact sports as well. Although I did play first 11 hockey, and some people have told me that that's worse than a contact sport. So I seem to avoid any serious injuries from hockey sticks.
Much like myself, you were previous an amphibian. But how many years did you swim competitively for?
I started swimming probably 9 or 10 years old. Probably I was a reasonably late bloomer. I didn't have a lot of natural ability, and I was more the grafter. And so I made my first New Zealand team when I was 17, and then kept swimming through till I was about 24. So about 7 years at that sort of international type level.
And what swimming club did you swim out of?
So I moved around a bit. I started at the Trojan Club based in Havelock North. Then I was up at Enterprise in Gisborne. Then I moved down to Hawke's Bay and swam for the Hiratonga Sun Devils for a period of time. And then, like most of us, you end up in Auckland at the High Performance Centre, where I sort of bounced between North Shore Swimming Club and the High Performance Centre up there.
Tell us about having to go up to Auckland and the High Performance Centre up there. What was that like? Well, coming from the provinces to begin with, it's a bit eye-opening going to Auckland in itself. So I went up there, and it's sort of a natural progression. I think it's got a bit different now, but back then it was pretty much that if you wanted to be, there was definitely some exceptions. But generally that's where the bulk of the high performance swimmers were, so that's where we went. And like a lot of these types of environments, you end up living with swimmers, eating with swimmers, training with swimmers, and that pretty much becomes your life. And what were your main specialities at swimming? Were you short distance, long distance? What stroke was your preferred swimming?
So my main events were the 50 and the 100 meters butterfly, and then I dabbled some in freestyle a bit as well. Towards my later years, I was told that I probably really should have been looking more at middle distance, but the shorter distances certainly were better for me.
You just didn't want to do the 10K sessions, is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. It's something that I used to do. I look back at it now and I go, geez, what was I doing? So what has swimming taught you that you have taken into rugby refereeing?
Oh, I think one thing being sort of similar thing. You're an individual on the day, or the higher levels. You sort of work in a team of three, but you're individual, but you're part of a wider group of support. So I think being that individual component certainly took from that. But I think for me, one of the big things is just putting things in context and realizing, particularly at the lower grades, there's just no rush. You're not being All Black at 13 years old and going through 15 years of hard training to get to that level. Just appreciating that there is a long way to go, and don't get so wound up about one-off blips on the way.
When did that moment come when you decided to stop swimming, and why was that?
Well, it was actually quite easy because it was pretty much forced on me. I was training one day and I suddenly had a pretty severe pain in my back. So I somewhat rolled out of the pool and sort of stuck. And then I got in the car, stuck my head out the window to stop myself from passing out. And it turns out that I'd had a sort of slip disc in the bottom of my spine. So that pretty much forced it on me. I think about a month later we had World Champs trials that year, and I still managed to swim, but I could barely bend down to touch the block, and I was getting acupuncture between sessions every session. So it got to that point where I was like thinking that I was probably got as high as I could, and this is probably a sign to move on.
In your refereeing career to date, you've been part of many memorable moments. Tell us about refereeing the McBain Shield and the McBain Miracle in 2022.
Yeah, I mean this was a crazy week in general, and I think what some people don't realise, because I kept it relatively quiet, is the week before that I'd been refereeing. I think it was Gisborne Boys versus Silverstream out at Porirua Park number 2, and early in the second half, my calf went, and I spent the rest of that game sort of dragging my foot along. And then we had Daniel Mangan's 100th Blazer presentation that night. So I went in to do that, and then we went into town after, and I could barely walk. And I'm not one it was so bad, and it's not something that I'd usually do, because I usually just push through. But this time I was like, all right, I'll probably need to have next weekend off to just give this a rest. And then the next day I found out, I've been tipped to do the McBain that next week. So I somewhat selfishly didn't tell the assessors that I was in quite a serious amount of pain in my calf. So I spent more time that week stretching and working on my calf than I did working, I think. And then it came right, and felt great the whole game. And I think, if you're nursing a dodgy calf, what's the one thing you're worried about in a rugby game? An intercept, and that certainly happened. So, but if I go back to that game, I mean, I still to this day see that as one of the, it was a massive privilege to have that fixture, and it was the most intensity I've ever felt in a rugby game by far, and for it to finish like that was just crazy. And I remember chasing Sam down the rugby field, and you just felt like the crowd was just closing in on everything, and all I'm sitting there going is like, please be a clear grounding, because I'm nowhere near close enough to rule something 50-50. And thankfully had enough of a lead to get that grounded, and then that sort of just took off really after that.
Another memorable moment is tell us about the try from the end of the penalty try from the end of the world.
Yeah, I knew this was coming. I did my game review this week, and I don't usually have the sound on, but I thought this week I'll sort of review with your commentary on, and there's a few things that came up, and I was just like, I bet you these are going to get asked. So yeah, I think it was Adam that described it as the penalty try from the other end of the world. I look back on that, as we do with learnings, and but it's also like rugby. You'll find people that will 100% think that was the correct decision. You'll think there's people that are 100% the wrong decision, and then you get a whole lot of people that have no idea. On reflection, I think it was the wrong decision. I still had a justification why I don't, but I think for the feel of the game, I think the penalty try was a bit too far, and probably a yellow card would have sufficed.
But it's like anything in rugby, really. You learn and move on and become a better referee, better player in general. But let's also go back to when you made your Premier debut. When did you find out, and who were the teams that you refereed?
I can't remember how I found out. I remember the game was Paniki versus Paraplum at Kilburney Park, and I don't remember too much about the game, but I do remember like what typically happens for a lot of people when you go up that grade. What tends to happen is you end up with quite a lot of penalties, because the flow of the game has just completely changed, and your reactions just. Sometimes you don't breathe what you normally would. So I do remember there being a lot of penalties in that game, and the Paniki coaches reminding me afterwards.
What was the one game where you learnt the most about yourself as a referee?
I think it's probably still that McBain game, and I think the reason why I say that is because, as I said, that was definitely the most intense game I'd been a part of. It was a very intense finish, but at no point did I feel overwhelmed. I was definitely very tired after that game, exhausted, but I didn't feel overwhelmed during the game. And I think that's a big part of my game, is that I don't get flustered very easily at all. And whether it's the first minute or the 79th minute, I like to think that I'm refereeing the same and doing what the game needs of me.
You mentioned the new zone squads this year for the New Zealand referee system, and you're part of the New Zealand Hurricanes ref squad. What is involved with that program?
So it's made up of referees from across the Hurricanes region, and obviously the other Super Rugby regions have their own groups. And I think our one, I think there's about 14 or 15 referees from the Hurricanes group, and then there's the Hurricanes Youth Council, which is specific to the Hurricanes, which is the sort of younger, more developing age group guys. So they've been invited along. So we do a camp. We've had 2 camps in May, and then we've got the next one in early mid-July. And it's about using the various levels of referees we've got. We've got guys that have been refereeing at a high level for a long time. We've got guys that are in the professional environment, a real mix, and getting them all together and trying to talk about things and then use that group to then go back to the associations and then convey that message and help further develop. So the big focus is very much on developing. They make it very clear at the outset that there's no guarantees around any appointments in that squad. So there's no expectation there. Obviously, we all want to get rep appointments, but the main thing, it's about developing a broad range across all of New Zealand and trying to get that consistency that we're all looking for.
What representative fixtures have you refereed to date?
It's a sort of scattered sort of thing. I've sort of that Centurion, the provincial development teams. Last year I did Horowhenua Kapiti versus Wellington Māori as a pre-season fixture. So that was sort of that sort of heartland level. So that was a really good game to be a part of, even though it was pre-season. And then done sort of various under 18s, under 16 stuff. So a bit of a mix.
And besides refereeing, you've also been involved in the setup of the television match official, the TMO, particularly for NPC, and you've got to observe what it's like at Super Rugby. What does that involve? What is your role associated with the TMO?
Yeah, so I've done a few varied things, and it differs quite significantly depending on the level of rugby that's going on. And so particularly this year, the last couple of years, I've been working closely with Jared Clark. Jared Clark's the main TMO in Wellington, and really just making sure that he's got a backup more than anything. So something, if he gets sick, that someone can jump in and go there. And I think it's very different at NPC. At NPC, we're trying to avoid the use of a TMO. The TMO has no sort of fast forwarding, zooming in. We just sit there and watch a screen, and if there's something that's clear and obvious, we come in unless the referee asks for it. But it's quite simple, and I think it's just about the different game and getting on with it. Super Rugby, there's a bit more involved. There you've got a bit more control around things, but the TMO is still someone that comes from out of town. And then I've just been sort of gleaning off Jared there. And then I was lucky enough last year to be in the TMO box, assisting the foul play review officer for the Bledisloe test in Wellington. So that was another level, so that we had that you got a TMO and a foul play review officer, and then each of those has an assistant. And that's about, they make the decisions while the assistant tries to find the clips and things to show them. So, it's been a really cool experience.
What's your aims for this year and beyond your refereeing career?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, on the scheme of things, I'm probably slightly longer in the tooth than most. So my aspirations are different. I'm here just taking one game at a time, and if I get good appointments, I get good appointments, and I make the most of that. But my focus is a lot on just developing who I am as a referee, and then trying to give back as much as possible, because I think there's a great opportunity to grow these young guys that have more of aspirations. So yeah, if I get rep stuff, that's great. Running touch for ARing for NPC rugby. That it's an awesome opportunity every time I get out there, and I don't take for granted. But my aspirations are relatively simple at this stage of my life. I just want to be healthy and get out there and enjoy it.
Who has been the biggest influence in your refereeing journey?
Yeah, I've had a few coaches over the years. So I had started with Mike Delnott, moved on to Bernie McLaughlin for a bit, had Mark Fairmaid coaching me for a couple of seasons, and mostly, now currently I'm using Brent Murray Muzz. So big influence from Muzz in my later years. Probably as I was coming through the ranks and break into Premier, probably my most influential figure was Dan Mangan. We got on well. We've always got on well, and we've always challenged each other. And we certainly don't agree on everything, but it just made that we could always have healthy debates and healthy conversations, and support each other. So yeah, I think he's probably been my biggest figure in terms of rugby.
Do you know who you're refereeing this weekend?
I do. I'm refereeing Hastings versus Napier Old Boys Marist up in Hastings.
Oh, wow. Oh, good.
Yes. So we've got, I'm doing a bit of a swap with one of the guys from Hawke's Bay. So Stu Catley's coming down from Hawke's Bay to ref the Porniki Old Boys Marist game, and I'm going up there to ref Hastings Napier Old Boys Marist. So, I'm really looking forward to it.
We'll finish off with this last question. What advice would you give to someone who is thinking about taking up the whistle?
Oh, I think just get out there and start having chats with referees, and I think the more comfortable you get in the space, then when you go into the middle, it just makes it that much easier. So yeah, I think just get in touch with people and start having those conversations, and then just give it a crack. I mean, most of my best friends now are from this group, and it certainly changed my life in more ways than one. So just give it a go.
Matt, congratulations on your 50th game and your Blazer game, and many thanks for coming on the Huddy Hui, and all the best up in the Hawke's Bay this weekend.
No worries. Thanks, Brad.
That is Matt Thomas, one of Wellington's premier referees, and on his 50th game, and it's a significant achievement, particularly a Blazer as well. Well, speaking of significant moments on the Huddy Hui and Huddy Sports, tomorrow we've got a First 15 traditional, also alongside another episode of the Huddy Hui. So tomorrow is the First 15 traditional between Wellington College and Rongotai College out at Wellington College. That was scheduled to be a 1:30 p.m. Kickoff, but Matt Thomas let me know a few hours ago it was actually 12:45. So 12:45 kickoff it is. So we have changed our adverts on our social medias to let you know that. So our coverage for that will start at 12:30 tomorrow, Wednesday, from Wellington College. Wellington College taking on Rongotai College, which also acts as one of the Wellington First 15 Premiership games of round 3. And of course, tomorrow night, we have episode 147. That will be at 7 o'clock, and we have a man who made his debut for the Batoni Premiers in the weekend at number 8, Luke Pearson, joining the Huddy Hui. He's actually from the UK. So look forward to seeing That interview tomorrow on Huddy Sports YouTube. So, as always, we like to thank our sponsors. It's Mike Pinfold Plumbing and Drain Lane Limited, Louise Reddy of New Zealand Travel Brokers, Jen that we announced last week, EG Fresh Rain Eggs. So it's great to have them supporting Huddy Sports and to keep doing what we're doing free. So that is the Huddy Hui for tonight. First 15 traditional tomorrow. Coverage starts at 12:30. And episode 147 with Luke Pearson from Petone at 7 o'clock. All live on Huddy Sports YouTube. I am Brad Hudson. Ciao for now.
It's the Huddy Hui. You can find Huddy Sports on Instagram and Facebook. And check out huddysports.co.nz.
Blocked drains, leaky pipes, don't let plumbing problems sideline your day. Call the team, Mike Pinfold Plumbing and Drain Laying Limited. Mike has been our sponsor since the very beginning, from quick fixes to full renovations. He's got the tools, the team, and the know-how to get the job done right. First time, every time. Local, reliable, and always on time. That's how Mike plays the game. Find Mike Pinfold at Pinfold Plumbing at extra.co.nz 027 430 4351. Mike Pinfold Plumbing and Drain Laying Limited. Also Google Mike Pinfold Plumbing and let the pros handle the flow.
Hi, Gavin Murphy here
And Cassie Murphy.
from G and Higton Funeral Directors.
Don't leave it up to someone else to tell your story. Do it now when you can enjoy being part of the conversation.
With a prepaid funeral, you can have music, readings and venue all chosen by you.
For your free funeral planning pack with everything you need to get started, go to our website at gnhigton.co.nz/pre-planning.
The Huddy Hui, Huddy Sports' captivating sports show. The Huddy Hui covers Wellington Club Rugby as well as other sporting topics of debate. Tune in on YouTube during the rugby playing months as host Brad Hudson interviews rugby players and other sporting personalities across the Wellington region and the rest of New Zealand. Catch the Huddy Hui streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and wherever good yarns are heard. The Huddy Hui live on Huddy Sports. Here at Huddy Sports, we love a good game plan. And when it comes to travel, our go-to is Louise Reddy from New Zealand Travel Brokers. Whether it's a sports tour, a family break, or that bucket list trip, she'll get you there stress-free with all the best deals around. She's local, she's experienced, and she backs the game like we do, and she's a great supporter of Huddy Sports. Look up Louise Reddy at louisereddy.nztravelbrokers.co.nz or email louise@louise.reddy@newzealandtravelbrokers.co.nz. Travel smart and travel like a pro. As here on Huddy Sports, we're always wanting to keep our content free on YouTube. So the idea of sponsors, we can promote you on live stream, our social media pages and our website. It's good to support the local community and helps keep Huddy Sport free for all to watch. So if you're interested to helping Huddy Sports, go to huddysports.co.nz or to our email address, huddysportsnz@gmail.com. Ciao for now.